So we've seen that data sets can be very useful in Mathematica, but one question that you might have is, suppose you want to use your own data. Maybe you don't want to be working with computable entities or with their sample data sets about planets or whatever. If you have a file of data or a spreadsheet of data, you can create a data set by building up associations. So in this first expression, what I'm going to do is I'm going to import some sample data about painting auction prices that comes with Mathematica. Now this particular data set has XML markup, but we don't want the XML markup, so I'm going to use the plain text option when I import that file, and I'm going to assign it to a symbol called auction file. So here's the information that's in this file. In the first line here, we have the title of a painting. The second line is the artist. The third line is a year that this was painted, and the fourth line is an auction price. So each one of those things, title, artist, year, and price, is what's called a field. And those four fields together make up what is known as a record. So this first record has four fields that describe a painting by Jackson Pollock. Now the next four fields, 1, 2, 3, 4, are information about another painting. So what is in each of those fields, artist, painting title, year, price, is the same from one record to the next. Now, one thing we need to know before we start working with this is, what did we just import? We can use the head command to find out. It's a string. So we want to be able to break this string into different pieces, and we can use the command called string split to split the file on new line characters. So every time we reach the end of a line, we want to create a new string, and I'm going to store this output in a symbol called auction list. So I now have a list of these things. The first string is the title of the first painting, the second string is the artist for the first painting, the third string is the year, and so on. Now in order to turn this into an association, we need to step through this list and apply a key that points to each one of these values. So if I want to grab just the painting titles, I have to step through the list. I grab the first one, but then I need to skip the second one, the third one, the fourth one, and then I need to grab the fifth one, and so on. So let me make a little table here. I'm going to say table. I'll just use I, it doesn't matter. Now, if I set I to run from 1 to 20, it's going to count from 1 to 20. So that's going to give me every single thing in the list. But I don't want to grab every single thing in the list. I want to grab the first one, skip 2, skip 3, skip 4, grab the fifth one, and so on. So what I need to do to grab those the titles of those artworks is I need to count from 1 to 20 by 4s. And that gives me the first, the fifth, the ninth, the 13th, the 17th, and so on. So in this table command, let me show you this. I can create a list of just the titles by using title, the string title as my key, points to auction list, that's this list here, of element 1, element 5, element 9, and so on, and that gives me just the titles. So I now have a list of these pairs that are in the appropriate form to be used in an association. Now, I don't just want to grab the title, I also want to grab the artist. Now, the artist is going to be position 2, position 6, position 10, and so on. So if we use R as our iterator for the titles, we want to use R plus 1 to grab the artists. Let's see this in action. Okay, title is this, artist is this, title is this, artist is this, and so on. So we have the general pattern that we need now to build up our association. We link the key title to the value at 1, 5, and so on. We link artist to the value at 2, 6, and so on, year, etc., etc. Let's run this out. We're just going to store the results in our auction data. Now the last thing that I did here to make this work out is to create a list of associations. Notice that each one of these things is an association. In order to create a list of associations, I had to wrap everything with this association command right here. So what I've done is I've created a table that contains an association for each record in my file. And once I have the information in this format, a list of associations, I only need to wrap that in a dataset command, and I end up with the dataset that I want. Remember, in an earlier lesson, we looked at extracting information from a web page, a process called scraping. Oftentimes you can write one program to scrape your information into just a list of fields in a text file or into a simple spreadsheet, and then you write another program that will take that information and import it and turn it into a data set, as I've done here, and then you have all of the power of Mathematica to query and manipulate and do things with that data that you've pulled from some source like the web. So suppose you've got your information in a data set. What's the next step? Well, the next step is to be able to ask questions or to query that. So for example, here's a command that says, give me the first row of my data set. Title, artist, year, and price. What if I want to get more rows? Well, I can take this command. I'm going to copy it. Command C, Command V, copy and modify. 2, this gives me the second artwork. If I use the double semicolon notation, I can request the next 3 records like this, and it gives me them in this form. So with the query command, I can ask for a specific row like that. I can also say, give me the artist for all rows. This gives me the artists in my data set. So these 5 men are the artists for these particular works. If I wanted to request all the prices, I could copy this, modify it so it gives me price. There's the prices that these artworks supposedly were auctioned for. I can pull out specific information like the artist and the year for a specific set of rows. In this case, what I'm doing is I'm saying, instead of all rows, I'm asking for rows 3 to 5, and instead of price, I'm asking for the list that includes both the artist and the year. We can also do things like use a command. In this case, I'm using a command called sort by. What this does is it gives me all the data that's in my data set, but instead of sorting it in the order in which it appears, it sorts it by ascending year. So in this case, we can see that prices seem to be climbing for the particular artworks.